lucky day. I didn't put that on there. He did. He asked me. Y'all are looking at me like you use the pencil. How about arguments with someone close to you? Little or great? Just matters how hard it goes, isn't it? I mean, come on, let's be honest. How traumatic is it for something simple or something, usually it's something stirring for a while. How about this? How about a 15-mile-an-hour car accident? Is that little impact or great impact? That's typically little impact, but it could be. How about a divorce? On everyone connected. Everyone. How about the loss of your job? Huge, isn't it? We tie our identity to the things we do. And to lose that, we feel like we've lost our identity, but your identity is in the Lord first, okay? It cannot be in the things you do. How about a 75-mile-an-hour car accident? That's a serious one. That's somebody going 45 and that's somebody going 30 hitting, or you hitting something stopped and you're doing 75 miles an hour. That's pretty serious. How about getting arrested? How traumatic? Is that a little traumatic or is that great? That's great trauma, isn't it? And after last night's conversation, I should have put an application out on our elders, I guess. You told that story last night. That was great. You were a teenager getting in trouble. How traumatic is drug use? How traumatic is drug use? Low or high? For every, it's actually as traumatic or more traumatic than divorce. Crazy, but it really is. America has made that they made the threshold very low on that. The truth is it affects everyone in the family. How about death in a family? It can be real low or it can be real high. But typically it's pretty high, isn't it? How about a fire of your home? That's pretty hard, isn't it? That's pretty high, isn't it? It's pretty high. My grandfather, back in the 1920s, the house caught on fire. They lived about 100 yards away from the river. You'd think you just pick up a bucket and go put the fire out. By the time they got bucket brigade going, 100 yards, they needed 50 to 60 people. All right? They lived right by the road. They owned a dairy. They lived right by the road, and they were hailing people to stop. Literally, I have the mirror that they use to blind people to say, we need help, we need help. 1 mile out of the town. The river is 100 yards away. So they literally brigaded as much as they could. My grandfather ran back inside, and in panic, he started throwing out furniture. What do you do? In panic, he grabbed a handful of silverware out of the drawer and threw it out the window. True story. Because I was a kid and I seen this fork and it was burnt. And I said, why do you have a burnt fork? It was silver. And he said, you would never guess. And he said, I just kind of lost my thoughts. I went in the kitchen, opened the window, and just started throwing stuff out the window. Do you see? Trauma brings on all kinds of different things. Let's talk about the soul tie. Now, this is when something happens that's natural or added to you, or maybe something you've done. You can have trauma because, it's just a bad idea. It's a bad idea. I had a lot of those when I was teenagers. When I was a teenager, I had a lot of bad ideas. It ties how you think, feel, and do for a long time. You become either a recluse or you let everybody know about it. One of the two. You become the person who gets real quiet and I don't want to talk about anything, or you're the person that tells everybody. Let's go back to that list real quick. I'll do it in reverse. How great does this tie to your soul? Driving too fast regularly, you get a speeding ticket. how much does that tie to who you are? It could be a low level. But after a while, does it start changing the way you think, feel, or do? If it doesn't, you're going to get another one. How about being so busy it leads to arguments and altercations with those close to you on a regular basis? You know, one of the greatest sins you and I commit as Christians isn't not giving, isn't telling a lot of lies, isn't stealing or robbing a bank. The greatest, I think, today is being so busy you don't have time for the Lord or your family. Try putting the phone down for a while and see if that changes anything. This last trip that we just took here in Kenya, I had to put my phone down because it really didn't make any sense to me to have it. Everybody's taking pictures and they're going to send them to me, so why do I need my phone out? I'm not going to answer y'all's phone calls from home. I love you. I'm not going to answer your phone calls. I'm 10,000 miles away. You can call somebody local. How about not paying attention at the light? You have a 15-mile-an-hour car accident because you give it the gas when it's still red. Now, I had somebody in the church about 4 or 5 years ago call me and go, Pastor, I just had an accident. What do? Call the attorney, I guess. Call your insurance. How about that? Call the police. How bad of an accident was it? Said, well, I looked up and this car inched up and I gave it the gas and hit the next car in front of me. I said, that might cost you $1,000 or $5,000. Did it tear up the next one? Bent their bumper underneath? I said, then you need to report that. If it didn't do any damage and everybody's good, go on. But if it bent the bumper underneath, he's in a big truck and they were in a small car and it did some damage to their car. And it was all of about a 15-foot accident. Not paying attention can cost you. How much does that attach to your soul? It's not a high level, but it will attach to your pocketbook, won't it? Does it make you do something again? Yeah, it makes you complain, and it makes you start working harder. How about, how tied are you when you have an extramarital relationship that leads into an adulterous relationship that causes a divorce? Now we're serious, aren't we? So when I said divorce earlier, you said it's high. How about all the things that lead up to it? How much do you know that never starts with just it happening? It starts with conversation. It starts with emotional attachment. It starts with a soul tie. So teenagers and young adults today say, hey, out of marriage relationships, having sex is no big deal. It attaches you to every person you have that with. And then when you become an adult and you actually get married and you start working through these things, you have to cut every single one of those attachments in order for you to actually have a healthy marriage. Otherwise, you're still attached. How easy is it to be united to someone you're connected to someone else? It's very difficult, isn't it? It's very difficult. That's the typical reason. But there are many more. How about taking advantage of the time clock and you lose your job? You know people just like I do who took advantage of the time clock, just 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there, but sooner or later you come back in and the supervisor of the district or the regional superintendent is here looking at things, and you walk in late and you're more like a dog that's been scolded, and you go click back in your time. And they quietly say, do they do that all the time? Yeah, get rid of them. Yeah, you might be a good employee. Can't shave it. How tied to your soul is it then? How about falling asleep at the wheel because you've been so busy and then you crash at 75 miles an hour? People do it all the time. I was with a couple several years ago that came back from Lubbock, and on their way home, the son had not been sleeping well. As he's driving, I don't know why, he's driving, there's 3 or 4 in the car, He falls asleep. His mother was next to him. She tried grabbing the steering wheel as they go off into the field, and the car flips at 75 miles an hour and kills the mother instantly. Everybody else lived. And I'm the pastor, new one. And I have to explain what took place to the dad. Not fun. How attached to your soul is it? I'm still talking about it, and I was 27 years ago. You see? Get serious because we are attached to different things in our life. And it's God letting these things be attached. It's not God saying, no, I'm going to keep you from everything. He says, I'm going to keep you and I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to be the person walking you through that. How about not paying for traffic fines and then it leads to you getting arrested? That's pretty serious. How about needing to calm down? So instead of calming down, you self-medicate and you get on something simple that leads to greater drug use. How about sickness that leads to death in your family because you never took care of yourself? How about leaving a curling iron on the bed leads to a fire in your home and burns it down? It wasn't long ago that Danny and I worked a fire on the other side of it, fixing somebody's home because she was in a hurry and she threw it on her bed thinking it'll just shut off, and it was an older one and it didn't shut off and it burnt the house down. Many of these things happen to all of us. Every one of you have heard these things happen, haven't you? To somebody. You didn't have to get beaten with rods. You didn't have to drug into prison. You didn't have to, but every one of us are attached to somebody who's had something of this happen. How do we come past this? Because these simple things that happen, we have to ask Christ to start removing. Now, that's a simple answer. We have to ask Christ to start removing. Here's what happens to someone. Now, think about just think about someone, or maybe even yourself for just a minute here. But have you ever had some of these things happen and you start getting a little calloused in your reaction? I know it's quiet today. Okay? I didn't say this was easy. I didn't say it was easy. One of the simple answers is get into worship. You're a Christian. You belong to the Lord. Take time to get into worship. One of the greatest things that happens is Saturday night right here for us. You had something happen, come sit Saturday night, don't say a word, just go, I'm here to take in. Perfectly fine. Part of that happens. Find a place to sit in the presence of the Lord. Some of y'all, you sit in the presence of the Lord better by yourself than you do in a group. It's okay. I've had many people come into service and never say a word. They were by themselves, and they said, later on they told me, I was getting healed. Good. That's what it's about. How about community? Hold on, let me give you something here. Let others help. You know how hard it is to receive? It's hard to receive, isn't it? It's hard to receive. I was in line at Texas Tea not too long ago. And I got up and the guy said, you're the fifth person. Do you want to pass it on or do you want to take it? I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, for the last 5 times, they've been paying it forward. And I said, well, I just got a couple drinks, me and my wife. And he goes, do you want to pass it on and pay for the next person or are you going to pay for it? I said, I'm going to receive it today. Thank you. And it was almost like the group behind me was like, how dare him receive? What is wrong with him? Doesn't he know he's got to pay for mine and I got to pay for his and he's got to pay for his? Don't you see the system? When you go through trauma, you want to be brave and strong. And you want to say, I got this. No, you don't. God's the only one who's got this. Church was meant to be a family, a place of worship, and a place of sending. Not a business. By the way, it wasn't recently made a business. It was made a business in the 5th century. Okay? It just continued on. All right? Laughter does good like a medicine. If you want to laugh, come back with us before service starts. I look around at this group up here, and they were enjoying themselves and laughter. And anything I said sly, Aaron said, "That's pretty ornery." I said, "Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You're feeling ornery today." I said, "Well, there's most days I feel ornery." Here's what the word says, though. Guys, get this. Laughter does good like a medicine. You have something difficult happens, you can hold it in and fall apart, break apart. It literally is breaking apart. You can laugh or you can scream and you get it out. It's a release. It's a release. The world says time heals all wounds. I beg to differ. Time pushes things off. It doesn't heal wounds, but it can, and this is what they're talking about, it can calm emotions. Difficulties calm emotions. It does not settle the issue. It calms emotions. What does calm the issue? Asking the Lord to heal that wound. A little lady came to our church 23 years ago. She's a sweetheart. She's with Jesus now. I can talk about it. Aaron's like, "When I go to Jesus, you going to talk about me?" Absolutely, Aaron. Absolutely. I love you, brother. Wasn't Aaron good guitar player? My gosh. That's the kind of talk I want to do. So she quickly had been a leader for many years. Her and her husband had been pastors for years. And they wound up, he passed away. It was traumatic. And then within a year, she was asked to step down from being the pastor of the church. And it became very traumatic. So I come along, and I knew her when I was a teenager. And then when I'm a pastor now, I'm in my early 30s. And so every chance she got, she told me about that wound. Every chance she got, she told me about the hurt. And she would say stuff like, "I sure appreciate you. You're not like the people I used to be around." And it just kept coming out. So one day, I thought I had a little latitude because I've known her for years. I had no latitude whatsoever, by the way. Just want you to know. And I said, she said something of that nature. I said, "When are you going to forgive them?" Yeah, that's exactly what happened. "When are you going to forgive them?" She goes, "I already have." I said, I don't really think so. I'm not trying to say anything, but every other conversation we have is still about that. And she said, "I already have." She quickly quit the church over that conversation. She quit us dead in the right. I sent her a dozen roses. This is a true story. I sent her a dozen roses and said, "I love you." That's all I did. I didn't say, "I'm so sorry I offended you," because I can't tell you that I'm not going to offend you. Hold on, let me. Here we go. I cannot promise you I will not offend you. Thank you. I pray. Yeah, some of you are like, "Yeah, we're still here, so we're all right." Haven't left yet. I cannot promise you I won't offend you. But I can promise I will push on you to do some growing. And when I do that, I may step over some fences. And most of them are barbed wire. I sent her a dozen roses, and I said, "I love you no matter what." That's what I said. She knew what it meant. She knew exactly what it meant. I found out in her next couple years, she actually went back to that church that had kicked her out as pastor because her husband had passed away. They built a new church, and she became one of their members and stayed. And she actually died being a member of that church. No one had the gall to ever tell her the truth because they were scared of the reaction. See, because trauma does that. I just happened to be the person. Said, "You're always that person, aren't you, Pastor?" Let me share with you the simplest way to get through any trauma and break a soul tie. Stay in His environment. Acts chapter 16. Paul and Silas sitting in the jail, dark, musty, leg ironed against the wall. Paul wakes up from being beaten and he said, Silas, are you there? He said, yeah, I'm over here, Paul. Man, that hurt. I'm okay. And he just says, I learned a long time ago what we're supposed to do in these situations because I don't know what to do. He goes, Silas says, I don't know what to do either. He said, well, I know what I get to do that helps me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. We know that song wasn't actually written for another 1,400 years, 1,600 years. But that's what happened. He started worshiping. And all of a sudden, the ground started shaking. The doors shook open. And the shackles fell off. Let me assure you, when you're in the environment of the Lord and you're moving in Him and you've come through a real heavy trauma and you move into worship, all of a sudden the world starts shaking and the heaviness starts coming off because the Lord starts removing it. That's how important it is. Let's pray. Father, today, I absolutely know all of us at one point or another are going to go through something. All of us. And it's okay that we go through it. It's not okay that we go through it alone. It's not okay that we don't have a congregation around us. It's not okay that we don't have people around us who love us, who will help walk us through this. But we all have something. So, Father, today, will you allow us as we enter into worship, let one thing fall off? Let something that's so traumatic that we've been hanging on to for a long time, maybe a tattoo on our soul, would you let it be healed today? Could be an offense, could be a death, could be a fire or even a speeding ticket or an accident that's left us in tough shape. Lord, will you just heal that? We're in your environment right now. We're in your environment. Paul says it's like the sting of a scorpion. And when you come along, you remove the stinger so it doesn't hurt anymore. It's not that it didn't happen, it just doesn't hurt any longer. That's what I asked for. Amen. So as we land this plane today, and you exit the jetty, be thankful that the Lord's the one who landed it for you. I'm going to ask us to go back into worship one more time. Those who help pray, I want you to step back and just be ready to pray. And just ask the Lord to guide your heart. But I'm going to ask you to do something with me if you would. Would you stand with me? Let's go back in one more time into worship. And just one more song and allow the Lord to minister to you. Thank you for being here this Sunday morning.